Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Sunday, August 31st. Warmer and drier conditions will continue across the Great Basin, and we will have some very warm temperatures, especially over the northern half of the region, where temperatures may exceed 10 to 12 degrees above normal and even be just a few degrees shy of records in parts of Idaho, with very strong ridge moving in. Otherwise, temperatures will remain above normal across the region with decreasing relative humidity and only a few chances of isolated storms in some of the higher terrain today or tomorrow before we see the next return of moisture from the south, increasing lightning activity over the western areas of the Great Basin. This will likely increase initial attack across the region, despite the recent moisture. Over the last 24 hours, we did have a weak wave that triggered just a few thunderstorms over central Idaho yesterday, a few on the fringes in western Wyoming, and then one cell over parts of Utah. Otherwise, no precipitation across the Great Basin with dry conditions. Yesterday, there were reported 2 fires for under an acre and only 14 acres of growth on our large fires. With the recent moisture, ERCs are still below the 50th percentile, but they are trending upward with warmer and drier conditions. Looking at our satellite image from this morning, strong high pressure is building across the Great Basin with generally sunny skies. There is an area of low pressure off the northwest coast, and this will trigger some showers or thunderstorms today, mainly west and north of our region. But this will be something to watch as the ridge breaks down and we do see a return of moisture from the south with these weak waves rotating around the high pressure, which could trigger lightning in the coming days. Otherwise, we will have smoke impacts from our fires to the west, especially across Idaho and western areas of the Great Basin. Looking at the weather pattern today, again, you can see the dry air in place in most areas, and really any moisture associated with this low off the coast should remain north and west of our region. Otherwise, significant fire potential will gradually increase across the Great Basin from west to east as we see that drier air in place and those temperatures continuing to warm. Winds today under the ridge will be light. There might be some breezy winds over far northwest Nevada or southwest Idaho in the 15 to 20 mile per hour range, but otherwise light winds. If we do see any thunderstorms in the southern areas of the Sierra Front, we could see some brief gusty outflow winds. Otherwise, relative humidity generally in the 12 to 15% range in most areas and near 18 to 20% in some of the higher elevations. Temperatures continue to rise, and we will see those temperatures increase to above normal over western and northern areas of the Great Basin. Up north, temperatures will be about 6 to 10 degrees above normal in some areas and about 3 to 6 degrees above normal over western areas. Otherwise, again, precipitation remains generally nil across the region. We could see some of those isolated storms, especially in the southern Sierra Front, as we get later this afternoon or this evening. As we move into Monday, we remain with that trough off the west coast and the building ridge of high pressure. This will be one of our hottest days across the Great Basin in some areas, with still plenty of dry air in place and significant fire potential, again, gradually ticks upwards across the region. Winds will still remain light in many areas, with the exception of any outflow winds if we do see some brief thunderstorm activity. Otherwise, relative humidity remains in the teens. Temperatures, again, continuing to rise. We will see temperatures increase to above normal, even in parts of Utah, but also up north. This could be one of our hottest days for Idaho, where Boise could hit 100 degrees, which is still a couple of degrees shy of records, but well above normal for the time of year. Looking at the probability of precipitation, you can see potentially a few thunderstorms in parts of central or even northern Nevada as we have some weak waves moving in or rotating around the high pressure. This will be something to watch. Aerial coverage of thunderstorms is pretty uncertain even for tomorrow, as these weak waves are pretty subtle, but we could see enough instability to trigger some isolated storms in Nevada on Monday. As we move into Tuesday, this is really our first big day of a return of increased lightning, as we see some moisture already pushing into southern and western Nevada out ahead of this low in between the high pressure to the east. Significant fire potential, again, continuing to tick upwards with many areas in the low risk still across the Great Basin. Looking at the transport winds, these winds over western and southern Nevada are really indicative of the gusty outflow winds associated with the expected thunderstorms. So aside from that, generally light winds across the rest of the basin. You can see relative humidity starts to increase as that moisture pushes north, so we will see many areas more in the 15 to 18% range in western Nevada as these storms start to develop. Temperatures still remaining warm across the region, not quite as hot as Monday, but still well above normal in the north and still above normal across much of Nevada and Utah. You can see from the thunderstorm picture here on the right that increase in moisture. So we will likely see an increase in initial attack with these thunderstorms, but they will be a mix of wet and dry with the better chances of some precipitation being along the Sierra front. Otherwise, further east, if we start to see these isolated thunderstorms over central Nevada, or even if we see some isolated storms in northeast Nevada, that would be generally on the dry side, and again, producing those gusty outflow winds. So we do expect an increase in initial attack in Nevada on Tuesday. 3-day precipitation shows this trend well. Again, all of this really occurring on Tuesday, and better chances of any wetting rains would be in the higher elevations of the Sierra front. As we move into Wednesday, this moisture starts to push north and east, which is where we may see some thunderstorms move into Idaho. We could see a few storms in southwest Idaho Tuesday, but it's really more so on Wednesday. So still increased significant fire potential across the region, but still not to the levels we saw prior to last week's moisture. But we will see an increase in initial attack as these thunderstorms increase. On Thursday, the moisture kind of remains in place, but a little bit more drying over western areas of the Great Basin. But that will change as we get later in the week potentially, and we see more of this influence from the trough off the west coast. So we could see a greater increase in showers and thunderstorms late in the week, especially over the northern and eastern half of the region. So the 7-day total precipitation, as this moisture continues to spread north, we will see showers and thunderstorms probably region-wide at some point over the next 7 days. So that will be something to watch, again, with an increase in initial attack. But they will also be a mix of wet and dry, so we will see some moisture with these thunderstorms, along with an increase in relative humidity. The 8 to 14-day outlook, taking us from September 7th through the 13th, shows generally warmer conditions and above normal precipitation for the west. So we will have possibly more potential for showers and thunderstorms even past this week. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.